In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to replace the Human Touch Novo, Novo XT, or Novo XT2 remote control socket and cable. First thing we need to do is remove the right-hand side panel. We'll need a 6mm Allen wrench to remove the bolt that secures the front of the side panel. Once the bolt is removed, using both hands, grasp the side panel and push it slightly forward, and then pull the rear side of it around the shoulder panel there to separate it from the chair. Just far enough to detach the hoses that connect from the side panel to the chair. Once the side panel is removed, we're ready to start cutting the zip ties that secure the remote socket cable. If you look in from the top, you'll see there are two kind of unique cable holders. They're not zip ties. They're white little cable holding loops. We're just going to go ahead and cut those. We won't be, we'll be use normal zip ties when we install the new cable. So just cut those. And then there's a regular zip tie here that we need to cut. And the rest of them are beneath the rear shroud. So the next thing we're going to do is use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 3 screws that secure the rear shroud. Once those 3 screws are removed, we can slide the shroud backward, just enough to get it out of the way. And again, using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the 2 screws that secure the main PCB cover. And you can lift that cover off. You need to kind of lift up in the back of it. And then we're ready to continue cutting zip ties. Actually, the next thing we need to do isn't a zip tie. We need a screwdriver, a short-handled screwdriver, to remove the screw that secures the white cable guide up in that rear corner there. So there are 2 zip ties in addition to that white cable guide that we just unscrewed. There's 2 additional zip ties in that rear corner. And again, we're going to follow the smallest cable along the back, checking for other zip ties. And cutting any of them that we encounter. Okay, once we've removed all the zip ties, we need to use preferably a short Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 4 screws that secure the main PCB to the chair. We're not going to disconnect any cables from there, but we need to be able to lift it to access the socket into which the remote socket cable is connected. There are 2 screws on the edge of the main PCB closest to you and 2 on the rear side. Okay, next we can lift up carefully on the PCB. When you lift the PCB, you'll see on the board that's sort of tucked in beneath the PCB, there's a square metal-looking receptacle into which the cable is plugged. That's what we need to disconnect. So you can just reach in there with your fingers and disconnect that cable. All right, then returning back to alongside the PCB, you can pull that, again, we're working with the smallest cable out of the different cables, and start pulling it through to make sure it's completely clear of the PCB area. Okay, once the cable's clear, we're ready to remove the screws that secure the remote socket itself. You can disconnect the remote control. And then continue threading the cable through to remove the entire cable and socket from the chair. To install the new socket then, position the socket where it belongs, lining up the screw holes with the corresponding screw holes in the frame, then replace the 2 screws to secure it. Okay, then we're going to begin guiding the cable all the way through back to the PCB area, making sure we don't leave any slack in the cable as we go. So first we're going to use a small zip tie, and you can thread it through the same white plastic cable holder that was used before. If you don't have that small of a zip tie to fit through the hole in that cable guide, you can just wrap a normal size zip tie around the chair frame. At any rate, the goal here is to secure the cable one way or the other to the chair frame just a couple inches away from the socket. Okay, then we'll continue down to the location of the other white cable guide and do the same thing. If you want, you can cut the remaining little hanging part of the white cable guide that we cut. If it's in your way, you can cut that off. Okay, next we need to tuck the rest of the cable back behind the chair frame and pull it through to the back of the chair. Next, we're going to bundle all of the cables together here right in front of the backrest cover and bundle those together using a zip tie. And bundling them to the chair frame. Okay, next we're ready to move to the rear of the chair. Next we can replace the 2 zip ties that are in that rear corner there. It's not really critical exactly where they go. We're just trying to keep all of those cables together and stop them from moving around too much in that area. And then we're ready to replace that white cable guide. So you need to align the two screw holes in the cable guide with the corresponding, there's a post with a screw hole at the end of it back there to secure the one cable that we're working with. Clearly you need a very short screwdriver to get that screw in there once you get it started with your fingers. Next we need to thread the cable we're working with underneath the larger fixed air pump hoses that you see there. So thread the cable across the back of the main PCB underneath the hoses it's intersecting, and then thread it underneath the main PCB toward the socket that we need to plug it into. You can reach under there and fish it through and then connect it. And then we'll have one more zip tie to secure the cabling in the left-hand corner there. So we're securing the cable that we just ran through to the other cabling back there in the corner, just to kind of hold it in place. Okay, then we can go through and cut all the excess zip tie. And do the same over in the other corner. So now we'll replace the 4 screws that secure the main PCB. Okay, then we're ready to place the PCB cover. When doing this, you'll note that there are slots on the back, here, here, and here. We need to install those slots over corresponding tabs in the back that you can't really see. So if you just slide the cover back farther than it really needs to go, and then press it down and then pull it forward, you'll be able to feel if those slots catch on the tabs. It's imperative that those slots catch on the tabs. Otherwise, the PCB cover can move and it will interfere with the chair recline and cause unpleasant noise. So once it's installed properly, we can replace the 2 screws to secure it. And then we're ready to reinstall the rear shroud. And replace the 3 screws to secure that. Next, we just need to cut the excess zip tie from the 3 zip ties that we installed on the side. And we're ready to install the side panel. To reinstall the side panel, position the side panel up next to the side of the chair, close enough to be able to reinstall the hoses. Note that the hoses are numbered, so make sure you match the number on the hoses to the number on the side panel. And then we're going to align the mounting bracket on the back of the panel there with the corresponding post on the side of the chair. And then push the panel backward to secure the bracket onto the post, while pushing inward on the front part. Once the side panel is in position, then we can replace the 6mm Allen bolt to secure it. You might need to jostle the armrest around a little bit for the screw holes to align. Maybe lift up on it a little or move it a bit about slightly. Okay, once the side panel is secure, we can reattach the remote control to the new socket. Actually, it would have been easier if we would have done that before we put the side panel on. But reinstall the remote control and tighten the silver ring nice and tight, and make sure that you cannot wiggle the base. That silver connection should not be able to wobble from side to side. It's important this connection is tight. And we're done.